Good morning, everybody. Betting for Breakfast Live, powered by the Sharp app. I'm Mark Drumheller, and I'm here with Dave Gleckner. Life without football. The Super Bowl has wrapped up. We cashed our Bengals tickets. My man Dave cashed his 14-1 Rams ticket. So we're coming into this weekend hot. Not a ton of action. So we're going to talk a little bit of NBA. We're going to go over some of the long shots, title odds, some of the long shots and conference odds as well. So we're going to kind of hit the futures market, see what we can come up with some edges, and then we're going to get into some college basketball, right? We have March Madness approaching. You know, what teams towards the top do we think have staying power? And then maybe some of those long shots down the board that we might be worth taking a stab to make some noise in the March Madness tournament, whether it's, you know, getting to the Final Four or just making some good headway in the tournament as well. But tremendous episode. Listen, before we get started, you guys know what to do, right? Make sure you like and subscribe on the YouTube channel. In the description, we have all the links that you need to get sharp in this offseason from football. We're getting into the hardwood. We're hitting basketball. So make sure you download the Sharp app. Make sure you hop into Discord. Plays in there every day. We have our expert handicappers giving out plays. So make sure you hop in there and get involved so we can continue to make some money now that football has ended. Dave, listen, man, we had a great Super Bowl. We are back at it this week. How you feeling, my man?
Good. And not only a great Super Bowl, right? 9-4 playoff run. Not bad. Mm-hmm. Not bad at all. Since he was absolutely the hammer for me, 4-0 on their bets, sided them each time. Super Bowl was good. Not great, but the final score was great. I mean, it sucks. I had Rams tickets, like you said, 14-1. Cincy 4.5 all across the board. But I kind of felt empty at the end. I almost wanted Cincy to win. Like it just how it went down, a couple of those calls late, and Joe B just not having the time he needed to maybe let a historic pass rip down the sidelines to Chase. I felt a little empty at the end, but my pockets felt better. So it was good. It was good NFL playoffs. And hey, time to start focusing on a lot of things. And if you guys joined us last year, we did some college basketball, Ncaa stuff throughout the time. I even did some March Madness from Florida, I remember, with our boy Tech Money. So college basketball, huge part of our kind of our betting basis. So I can't wait to talk a little bit about that today. And obviously the big NBA future markets, because with the trades now settled, all you got is buyouts, right? So it's not really anything. These teams are not going to change much from here on out. I think we can have a pretty clear view of what we think is going to go on roster-wise, barring injuries. So it should be good to talk about those.
Yeah, and the most fascinating part about the NBA, Dave, is I feel like we saw this last year because of the situation with the pandemic and how teams were resting teams and some key injuries that we saw happen, that when we got to the playoffs, sometimes the seeding didn't necessarily reflect what we see on the odds board, right? Like, you had the Lakers as a low seed. People were wondering if they could, people were still talking about them, turning it up and winning, going to the NBA finals, possibly winning. Against the Phoenix team that was kind of like unproven, right? And that was like the tale of two series is almost. Like the Lakers got out early. Everybody thought they were going to cruise. And then Phoenix comes back and makes a run all the way to the NBA finals. And I think you're going to see a little bit of that this year, right? We see some teams that have, disappointed throughout the year because of some injuries. Can they get it together and kind of make a push? And it'll be interesting to see, how the odds end up laying if those teams come on strong in the second half. There might be some good value out on the board if you believe that those teams could get it together. But let's get started. We'll talk about the NBA first, and let's talk about the most important thing, and that is the title odds, right? What teams, when we look at the futures market, do we think have a legitimate shot at the title, right? Obviously, the big trade that went down, us being from Philadelphia, James Harden comes in to Philadelphia, Ben Simmons, Seth Curry, Drummond go to Brooklyn, to the Nets. And, the interesting part about the odds board, we just saw the Sixers, take out the Bucks without even Harden in the lineup yet, right? And, so I think that there's some pretty good value still. Now, this number was like 1,400 before the trade, all the way down to like plus 650 now. But I think it's very interesting. You see the Nets and the Sixers at plus 600 and plus 650 on the board right now.
Yeah, it is. And, before we get into it, let me get a shout out. Adam Cease, what's up, brother? And
Our
James
guy
Grasso,
Adam.
Jimmy, what's up, Jimmy? Good to see people check in early this morning, getting their bets in for breakfast like we want. Hey, yeah, it was interesting. Obviously, the trade market really impacted the East, right? You saw a few teams get shifted around here. I was surprised Brooklyn's odds really didn't move much, and they're still the odds-on favorite out of the Eastern Conference teams to win the NBA title and to win the Eastern Conference. That was a little surprising to me because I still think the uncertainty of Kyrie, you don't know what you're getting with Ben. I'm just surprised that Brooklyn's still up there. And while you still in the Sixers, I thought their odds were going to get even better. I still think there's good value sitting there at 700 today on DraftKings to win the title. So, yeah, well, I know we'll talk about it, but it was interesting how they shifted, but I expect even a little bit more.
Yeah, I mean, so the odds that we add up on the screen are from BetMGM, so make sure you shop around. And that is the best part about getting the Sharp app, right? When you get into Sharp app, odds comparison, bet tracking, right? So you get all the odds from your favorite sports books, BetMGM, PointsBet, DraftKings, so you can get the best numbers. And also you can track all your bets on there. So when you have a big night, you put it all over social media, tell everybody in gambling Twitter you're the best, right? That's the funnest part. But listen, getting back to your point, Dave, when we look at the Eastern Conference, almost like a 3-team logjam in there when you look at the odds. It's Bucks, Nets, Sixers, right? People are not going to count the Bucks out yet with Giannis. Could have a big second half. When we look at some of the other teams that have been successful, so let's look at last year the Jazz, right? They were they were a team that I had, winning the West when the playoffs started. I thought they could make a move, right? They're 14-1 plus 1,400. The Heat is 11-1, right? Jimmy Butler took that team to the finals in the bubble. Where do you see the best odds on the board right now in the futures market? I mean, listen, I think there's good value in the Sixers. I think the Suns are clearly the best team in the NBA, but I think taking a shot with the Sixers now makes a lot of sense. But I think the Heat is a team that you really can't count out either. And I think 11-1 might be the best value on the board when we look at all these teams.
Yeah, no, there is value below the favorites. There absolutely is. I mean, I'm a little bearish probably on the Jazz. I think the loss of Joe Ingles, even though they brought in some other talent like Ncaa, Alexander Walker to maybe fill in that shooting role, I just think there's just too much smoke there right now. I think you still have an issue with Gobert and Mitchell and their relationship, how they play together. I'm awful in Utah, and I did like them a lot last year, Jones. The reason I loved them last year, and I think you were probably there too. They were like the highest scoring team in the league. They were so efficient at shooting threes. It was a new NBA, and they were really taking advantage of it. Not so much this year. So Utah's a little off for me. I do love Miami. Miami is a team I don't want to count out. They just play so well defensively. My problem with Miami is depth. They're probably 8 strong at the most. They're a little older with Lowry, with Butler.
There's experience, though. Those guys bring experience.
Yeah, I just don't know if that can hold up if you're only playing 7, 8 guys deep for that long in the playoffs. So I'm not sure I love them more on the championship side, maybe on the Eastern Conference side where you're getting 550. But the one, if you ask me for a long shot, I've been on this team all year. I love this team. I think they got it like a shot, man. It's the Memphis Grizzlies. I just love what John Morant's doing there. They're so, it sounds weird, but they're long and athletic. They have so much talent on that team. Desmond Bane is just a musclehead, great shooter. But then outside of that, you got Jackson. They've been mixing in some other, just really good shooters with great defense and leaping ability. They're fun to watch. They've beaten the Warriors. They've beaten the Suns. They're just tough. And at 25-1, they're a team you don't want to see in any 7-game series. They got that chip on the shoulder, like, why not us? And that's a team I'm definitely going to sprinkle some on. I like Memphis.
All right, so let me get you this, right? Futures odds, we're Sixers fans, right? The plus 650 still looks appealing to us. Outside of them, if you had to pick one team to bet on this board for the NBA futures, who do you got right now at this point?
Golden State.
Golden State. So you think Draymond coming back is going to make that big of a difference?
And it's not a little bit of Draymond, but it's more like they're starting to get their guys playing. Clay's going to be playing, but I even think the introduction of Kuminga into lineups is really going to help them. He's going to get a lot more minutes. He's a rookie that has high potential, high upside. I don't think Wiseman's going to play much. If he does it all this year, I think he's done. But, they just have a lot of little pieces, and they can shoot you out of the gym. And if Steph and Clay get high, I mean, you saw Wiggins' first-time All-Star now. He's that third piece that's kind of what they've been looking for a while now. They couldn't get it with D'Angelo Russell. The guy wanted the ball too much. Wiggins just needs it a little bit, and he's very efficient scoring. I love Phoenix. We all love Phoenix. But
I love Phoenix.
I get it, but I would probably lean with the experience in Golden State.
I love it, dude. So I would take Phoenix if I had to take a team outside of the Sixers to win it. I just think that they're so deep, and you're seeing them go out and do some of the little things, getting Torrey Craig, guys like that back in the fold.
Yeah.
I think they know why they came up short last year. I thought they were going to win last year. I thought they were going to beat Milwaukee in the finals. And I just think that experience they can build off of as they get deep into the playoffs. But, you brought up the Memphis Grizzlies, and let's bring up the conference long shots right now in the NBA, because they're a team that I think, Dave, if, something happens to Phoenix, right? Or, we have some injuries, with Chris Paul down the stretch, or, somehow that team gets weakened, even though I think that they're deep. I think the Grizzlies to get out of the West become really relevant. And you can see right here, 12-1 to win the conference, right? Not win the title. We're just talking about getting to the NBA finals here. And, there's some teams that have really kind of reshaped their identity. You could look at the Celtics 11-1. They've kind of focused in. They're a defensive team. They want to beat you 70-60, right? And then you have some young team like the Bulls came up strong, ran into some injuries. Can they get healthy? Can they make a push? And then, the new look Mavericks, right? So, the Mavericks, move Kristaps out of there. Luka's like, I'm going to score 50 a game for the rest of the season. And then, can they make a push? So what are your thoughts on some of these conference long shots? And do we see value on the board there?
Well, I still see value, like you said, in Memphis. It's a team I'm going to love going all the way. If anything behind it, I think I'll look at more matchups in the playoffs. I do think Dallas presents some challenges for teams now that they've turned, like you said, Luka ball, but also defense. They've really turned into a very highly efficient defensive team. So I think they could give some teams some trouble. They went down to Miami, and Miami's a good defensive team, as we know, and won in Miami the other week. So I
think they've been pretty good to the under lately too. I think there was some kind of like late value towards the end on the under. In those games.
Yeah, but it shows that they're trying to play games against high-scoring teams, and they're also competing with the low-scoring teams, and they just have a really good style of basketball. You think about when the Sixers went there, similar team to what they had against Milwaukee the other night, and the Sixers kind of got ran out of the gym. It was tough for them to score. I think scored in the 90s. So Dallas is an interesting team. I'm not sure I could get all the way to winning the conference. You can scratch Lakers out of there. I'm not even sure they make the playoffs. And they're still getting way too much respect. Denver's an interesting team, right? Won in Golden State the other night on a last-second three by Morris. I don't think they have enough, though. There's talk Jamal Murray, but
what's he going to look like if so? You know what I mean?
Yeah, it stops at Memphis for me. It probably does, but I will be very interested in Denver-Dallas matchups, depending who they play.
All right, our guy Adam checking in, man. He wants to know what we think of the Cavs, Boston, and the Bulls. So giving us a little three. I like the Cavs in the sense of I think they can make the playoffs. They're a young team. They play defense as well. I think that they could, win around in the playoffs, right? Like, are they going to come out of the East? No, but I think they can make a little noise. They can mess some teams up, right? That, if they take them lightly in the playoffs, I think they could do some things. Boston, I don't know, man. Like, I get it. Like, they're hot right now, but teams are going to adjust, I think, and kind of figure them out a little bit. And it's going to come down to leadership on that team. Like, can they pull it together? And then the Bulls, I don't know, man. Like, they're just so bad defensively right now. They get those guys back. Of course, they'll be a lot better. But I just think that they're a little too green, the Bulls right now.
I think you hit the nail on the head on each one of those. Cavs, probably the most dangerous of those three. Really love Darius Garland. He's a
I love that
dynamic
team,
scorer,
man.
but he's also really good with assists too. He's just an all around like great player. And then you have just those ancillary pieces. It's a shame they lost Ricky Rubio, and people be like, really? He was playing some great ball for them. That's really when they had kind of their high peaks this year. But no, they're still well-rounded. Think about that. They've lost Sexton and Rubio, and they're still doing all this stuff. So I do like the Cavs. I think they're well-suited. I think they're a tough team. I don't think anybody would necessarily want to play them. Boston, on the other hand, good, right? And that was impressive, winning 3 straight road games by 30-plus points. But then you lost at home to Detroit. So that's what Boston is. I just probably couldn't trust them overall. You got Tatum and Brown, but, sometimes it's Brown's playing on one leg, and,
I just feel like when your top 2 stars are like, that they're kind of like not long for each other, right? Is that a good way to put it? Like, I feel like, I don't know. I mean, how's that going to work,
But they're a team that could, they could beat like a Miami, right, in the first round and get swept the next round. Like they're just too volatile for me. And lastly, with the Bulls, like you said, I know they're sitting in the 2 spot, but God, first off, they have no center defense. I know they got Vucevic, but they have no presence down low. That's really where teams beat the crap out of them. If they get Lonzo back fully healthy, I know he's been playing. If somehow Caruso comes back, they're decent in the defensive backcourt with Levine. They play some pretty good guard defense, but they're just going to get beat to shreds in the half court.
Well, especially in that half court game, right? And, listen, if you guys are in the, betting NBA props, right? That's a team you want to target. You want to target, when teams play these Bulls,
players,
especially if you get a center, right? Players can, especially centers, big men underneath, very profitable from that angle. But I agree with you 100% on the Bulls, man. I think it's a great story. I think, what DeRozan's doing is awesome. I think they're building momentum for the future, but this year just going to be more of a learning experience, I think, than anything else for them. But let's get into the MVP market, right, Dave? And this one is interesting in the sense that it's not interesting, right? Like this really comes down to me that if Joel Embiid stays healthy, he's going to be the MVP this year. Plus 125 odds. You have Jokic, the reigning MVP, plus 300. Giannis, can never count him out, plus 375. Then you got some long shots with Steph Curry and Ja Morant, 2 teams that you like in the Warriors and Grizzlies. Getting some really good odds with those guys. What are your thoughts on the MVP race? I think it's Embiid to lose. I think injury is the only thing that can slow him down at this point. I'm pretty sure we're on the same page.
I'm not. And you're going to hate to hear this. I'd put my money on Jokic. Jokic is just that type of player that shows up in everybody's charts as this, wonder kid with all these numbers. And he's still, with the year that Embiid is having, Jokic is still leading the league in NBA PER, player efficiency rating, and that's a Hollinger stat. And he's still number 1. He's actually putting up one of the highest PER years of all time. If he lands on that number, and here's my fear with Embiid going down, if he didn't have Harden, he wins the MVP. But with Harden coming in and some of the volume maybe getting tweaked down a little bit, I think that's going to affect him. Giannis is leading the league in scoring. Joel's second. I think that gap widens a little. And I just think Jokic keeps doing what he does, and he out-rebounds Embiid. He out-assists Embiid. He has a higher PER. I think Embiid's the best player. I think he's the MVP. But it's all analytics now. And for my mind, analytics are really going to show Jokic. So I would bet Jokic with my mind. My heart says Embiid's the best player, no doubt.
Yeah, definitely. Well, here's the funny part, and this is how I see it, right? So when you look at it from a perspective, if you look at like the team's net rating when the players are in and when the players are out, Jokic is astronomical, right? And that's really the value of the MVP. But like we saw in football, it doesn't always get that way. Brady had the best WAR rating for all quarterbacks. He threw for 5 trillion yards and 55 touchdowns, and they gave it to Aaron Rodgers, right? But so it doesn't always equate to that. But I think that Jokic is the funny part about it is I think that Embiid's going to get it if he stays healthy. And I think that this year Jokic probably deserves it more. And I think last year Embiid deserved it more. But I think it's going to come out. I think it's going to be a wash, and it's going to come out. And the reason I think so is because I do think that the Sixers with Harden are going to be a much better team. So even if that volume comes down, I think they're going to see how good that team is. And again, if there's if the Sixers don't show much improvement, then he's probably dead in the water. But I think they will take that into consideration. And I think he's still going to put up big numbers. I mean, it's really going to be a two-man show there with him and Harden. And I still think he's going to have the numbers to be competitive. But I do think there's going to be a little bit of, people kind of looking into last year and being like, okay, do we really want to give it to Jokic 2 years in a row when it's really should be a split? And they kind of hand it over to Embiid. But outside of those two, sure, yeah.
Well, yeah, just quick. I do think Embiid, because of what you said, will probably win it. I'm betting Jokic because plus 300 is way better for what I think the voters might get close to than the 125. So I think you're right. They are going to settle it with a you get this, you get this year. Embiid, number one team last year, number one seed, Denver number 4. I really thought it should be team based, like you just said, plus minus all those things. I think they might get back to that a little bit this year. So I'm with you. I just think the betting value is a little better on Jokic.
Yeah, Jokic definitely a more positive EV bet, right? When you look at, the likeliness outcomes in regards to that number. Any shot with the other guys, right? So Curry, you talked about the Warriors maybe coming out of the West, 11-1, very juicy odds. I personally don't think so because I think if they do battle back into it, I think it's going to be Clay. People are going to see just kind of the team-based thing. Okay, this is because Clay got his feet under him. Draymond came back. Then all of a sudden, Steph Curry gets all the threes, all the points, and they start winning again. I just think Morant just too big of a hill to climb. I think this is a good way for him to get into the voters' minds. So next year he can kind of make that push.
Yeah, I think you're on point. Listen, Steph has no shot. He's 26 in PER. If people actually give it, 26, you got guys, Willie Hernan Gomez, Jared Allen, higher ratings. Like, it ain't happening, Captain. But if he gets it, you might as well just, take everybody's cards away. Like, he's a nice story, but he's not winning the MVP. It would be Morant that I would actually eye up. He's 7th over on PER. If that team somehow gets the number 1 seed, I don't see it. I think they're a little too far behind. I think they're about 4.5 games. And, the Suns aren't going to give up that margin with only 30 left. But if somehow Memphis were to get to the 1, maybe even 2 seed, there could be talk. So maybe there's value in Morant, but that's about where my line draws.
Yeah. Well, Steph always has Holy Moly or whatever. What's the golf TV show he was doing? Remember, is that crazy? Is he still doing that stuff? Holy Moly or something?
Like
what do they call
golf shit?
Yeah.
It was Holy Moly. It was like mini golf. Yeah.
I remember when it first came out, I'm like, oh, this might be fun. Like, I'll watch it with the kids a couple times, and then I was like, I can't do this anymore. I'm done.
No.
But, so, yeah, Steph probably a long shot there. I think he's more dependent on those other guys. And, obviously Morant, I think it's good this year for him to get into the conversation. But let's pivot out and we'll talk about NCAA college basketball, right? March Madness right around the corner. We sit here February 19th. March Madness is coming, so it's time to dig in and get into that, Dave. And I just want to do some light work here. If you got some picks for today's games, you can definitely fire them out for the people. But first, I want to talk about the NCAA National Championship odds, right? We know that Gonzaga is the odds-on favorite at plus 450. And then you have some other teams in the mix. Kentucky, one of the best teams in the country. Arizona, Duke, hard to trust, right? You get down to like Duke and Purdue, very hard to trust. Purdue all offense. That really doesn't usually work in the tournament, so to speak. And then you have Auburn, which is a team that I think is very interesting. And I'll kind of kick this off. Jabari Smith, obviously, one of the best players in the country, could easily be the number 1 pick in the draft. If not, he'll be up there. And, I just think with him and Kessler underneath, down low, I think that's a team that could do some damage in the tournament. And I think at 10-1 odds, I don't think that they're a bad play. I mean, listen, I like, me, like I look at the stats, I look at the metrics, right? And obviously Houston jumps out at the page when I look at long shots. And I was on Houston big last year. They got to the Final Four, just did not have the horses. Probably not going to have the horses again this year, right? With the injuries that they've had. But I like Houston, but I think when we're talking about to really have a chance to win the national championship, if I'm going outside of Gonzaga, I think there's value there with Auburn at 10-1.
Yeah, I think you're right. I think Auburn has great value. I mean, they're a team that plays a unique style. I mean, the SEC, for all the stuff we talk about in football, one of the best conferences in basketball now. I mean, Kentucky is an awesome. They're on the one line. We knew it last year. A team like Alabama was a great story and made a great run. They're a little
They get
dangerous. I'm going to
Kentucky
talk
today.
about them.
They
Yeah,
got
that's
Kentucky
a game I'm
today.
going to talk about in a minute.
Perfect.
Yeah, I mean, they have some really good teams. I think they, a lot of those teams get high strength of schedules. And again, I'll talk about that a little bit. So the SEC is really grown up in what I'm talking about with basketball. And I think that's a great play at 10-1. What do we know about Gonzaga? They're big, right? Chet Holmgren down low. They still got Drew in the middle. They got, and they got shooters. They're just a big, big team, right? And we also know they lose a lot in the tournament when they're supposed to win. And it's hard to really dial in and trust them overall to sit there and win a title. That was an embarrassing loss, in my opinion, last year to Baylor in the national championship. Coming off that thriller against UCLA, hitting that half-court shot, Jalen Suggs, and to have that energy versus a team that can just get in you, that's kind of what Auburn can do too, right? So out of all this, that's probably the one team. And right now with those numbers, and you're talking about the number 2 team in the nation, I like your pick there for future odds. There's a couple others I'm looking at that are deep. I'm huge on Murray State this year. Can they win a title? I'm not sure, but that's a team we really got to keep our eyes on it. 25-2, having an undefeated season in the Ohio Valley. This team might be better than the John Morant team that they posted a few years ago. And you can get huge odds on them.
Yeah, there'll be opportunity, right? So, we know from last year, we did a ton on this, and we'll get into it as we get closer to March Madness. But, you can bet these teams to get to the Elite Eight. You can bet these teams to get to the, you know what I mean? So, these long shots that you think can make noise are really valuable, right? And that's like a team like Houston. Like I said, we know that Houston is built to where they can go far in the tournament, but when they get to the end, they're not going to get there. And there's going to be some teams like that we can take advantage of on the board and just can kind of bet hey, maybe get to the Sweet 16, maybe get to the Elite 8 and make some money that way. 2 teams in the SEC, they're squaring off again today that I think are better than probably getting credit. I mean, Tennessee just smashed Kentucky, obviously, them playing Ty Washington was a mistake, right? And I feel like in these SEC games, you bet the home team. That's what you do. You just bet the home team, and you're going to make some money. But them and Arkansas, I think we saw Arkansas against Auburn. Like I think the SEC has really stepped it up this year.
They have. They're really good. They got a bunch of teams laying in the top 10, 15 that you could take long shot odds. One team I will talk about locally here is Villanova. And Villanova at 25-1 right now. I feel like this is a Villanova year very similar to their 2 championship seasons of prior, really led by a solid guard play, a senior guard play, and getting better as the season goes on. If we're, as a Villanova fan, can kind of remember they got beat down by Baylor in December, scored like 40 points, and it looked bad. It looked like, what is this team really going to end up? And then you go and play a Providence team the other night, and you win there where nobody has won in 2 years. And you win a game that was actually 2 defensive teams, 2 teams ranked in the top 15, 20 defensively in the nation, and they score in the 80s. It was definitely an opposite of a game script that I would have had. Gillespie puts up his career high in points, goes well over 30. And they're starting to click, and they're starting to hit on the right, the Villanova style play.
That was a big number that they covered on the road too, 4.5.
4.
Like I was surprised. Did it go down to 4 by tip? Yeah,
but 4.5. Yep.
Yeah, I mean, I was surprised. I was like, man, Villanova might win this, but this looks like 1 or 2. Like I think that was probably the cheese, but I was like, hey, you know what, Providence.
It's amazing how they hit it. Yeah, but I played it, and it actually Providence hit a 3 on the last play of the game to get it to 5. I felt good at 8, but I mean, no, they had to stretch away late in the game. But Villanova at 25-1, I think is a real interesting play. They match up against some of the bigger teams in the nation now, have some physical play down low. I wouldn't be scared if they end up in Kentucky's bracket, if they end up in Kansas's bracket, not too big of a deal. I think it's a little tough with an Auburn, Baylor, and Gonzaga. So it all depends on where they land. But if they land in the right bracket, they're going to have a shot. So at 25-1, I'm definitely monitoring that one too.
Yeah, so when we talk about Gonzaga, right, like, the type of team that has to knock them off, I think, would be a team that can kind of like spread them out and kind of attack them on the perimeter, on the wing. What team do you think has the best shot right now? Like, listen, I was in my bracket. I had Gonzaga and Houston last year. I bet Gonzaga in the finals, right? If I cover my head now, like, nobody that was one that
Yeah.
didn't work out for me.
It
But
happens.
I had future tickets in there. It was a bad finals for me. But you know, what team do you think towards the top has the best, skill set to kind of knock them off?
It's a great question. I mean, I'm looking. So the two teams they've lost to this year, Alabama, who is
Mhm.
well known, shoots about 50% of their shots from 3-point land, one of the highest paces in the league. And then I think the other loss was Duke. Duke, another team, ranks 11th overall in Ken Palm's adjusted offensive efficiency, a team that shoots well from three. So I do think you're right. It's a team that stretches them out and plays a fast pace. I know Gonzaga last
Mhm.
year was a little bit higher pace. They're not as higher pace this year. I'm sure Baylor would give them some nightmares again, just facing that type of defense. But for me, if you're looking at high offense, Purdue has some size and Purdue can
It's a good
shoot.
point.
I think
It's a
Purdue.
good
I
point.
think Purdue
Yeah.
could be a team that could match up well against Gonzaga.
If they're hot, then it's over.
Yeah,
You know what I mean? Like,
yeah.
it's, they can run with Gonzaga. Very interesting. Going to be a lot of fun. Listen, we got plenty more coming up on March Madness on the tournament. Dave, you have a couple picks for today in college basketball that you're firing on?
Yeah, I'll give them quick. I know, what a beautiful day for college hoops, by the way. If you're a college hoops fan, which I know it's a lot of in our blood, you got like ranked 3 games today of ranked teams before like 1 o'clock. Like this 12 o'clock slate is beautiful. So you can get out, put a little on early, see how they fester, maybe have a little extra for tonight. And with that, I'll give you the Kentucky-Alabama game. As we talked about earlier, Alabama is just like Jekyll and Hyde. They've beaten Gonzaga. They've beaten Baylor. They've beaten Tennessee. Houston, a team that you love. This team can knock off a giant, no problem. They can also get beat by a turd. And that's what's, it just it bends your mind and to understand what they really are. Last time they played Kentucky, they lost 66-55 and shot 3 of 30 from threes, 10%. But they're not going to change who they are. They're one of the fastest paced teams in the nation. They're going to put up threes. And surprisingly, they won last year at Kentucky, and they won by margin, by like 20 points there. And that's one thing that I think Kentucky will remember today. I think the availability of Ty Washington is huge. Like you said, probably shouldn't have played last game at Tennessee. Came on off that leg injury at Florida.
Too soon.
And even
too
if he
soon.
plays, it was too soon. This line opened up at 9. It shrunk down to 6.5 in most markets, some 7. I think that's based on his availability. But here's the thing about Kentucky. They're built around their center, down low. Big O, the Oscar, the West Virginia transfer, averaging 16.2 points per game. Yeah, Sheway, 15 rebounds, leads the nation rebounding percentage. I just think they're 15-0 at home. They're 4-1 ATS in the last 5 Saturday games, where on the other hand, Bama's 1-6-1 in Saturday, 9-16-1 ATS all year. Really just overvalued in the market. I like Kentucky at home today, minus the 6.5. I think they remember last year's loss. I think they play that physical defense. And I just think they're going to be more efficient. They're the 3rd best 3-point defense in the SEC. And then Bama's going to be firing them. If they can just, contain them. Not 10%, but maybe 25. Kentucky wins with margin.
Love it. Love it. Absolutely love it. Kentucky. And listen, Brooks underneath too. It's not just Big O. It's not just Sheba. He's obviously the guy, right? But, Keon Brooks, they have some guys underneath that can get the job done. And I think if that perimeter defense is working against Alabama, they're going to be able to clean the glass, get the job done, take away those second chances for Alabama. So I like Kentucky today too. I'm going to play that one. I'm going to punch that one in with you. Anything else on the board that grabs you, or should we move on?
One small one. I'll go to the Big Ten. A team I'm really fading right now is the Iowa Hawkeyes. A team that's 17-8 overall, 4th in the nation points per game, and 4th in offensive efficiency. They have zero wins, quality wins this year. 0 against the Quadrant 1 net rankings. They just haven't had one yet, and I'm not sure they're going to get one. They've had one of the easiest schedules in the nation. They're 86th overall strength of schedule, and they're fighting for their playoff lives. And you're going into Ohio State team that's now 6-1 ATS in their last 7 games, starting to hit on all cylinders. I liked how they finished the Minnesota game. In their last game, they were up only 2 at half, won 47-20 in the second half. That's what I expect to see today. Iowa, great shooting, led by one of the best scorers in the nation, Keegan Murray, at 23 a game. I think they line up Liddell or someone else against him, try and just, hey, Murray, fight for your points, fight for your shots, let everyone else, get a couple here and there, but crank down on defense. I like Ohio State at home today, minus the 5.5. They're 11 at home, by the way, 11-0 at home. They're a solid home team. Again, kind of like Kentucky, looking at teams that play very well at home versus a team I'm not very high on in Iowa.
Sounds good. Rolling with the Buckeyes, fading the Hawkeyes. Listen, everybody, go download the Sharp app, right? Get the best number. Get the best number on these two teams, Kentucky and Ohio State. Get it in there, place your bets, and hop into Discord. The link is below to hop into Discord. If you're opening up a sports book, there are a ton of promo codes in the description as well. Make sure you hit those. Get the free money that the sport books are giving you. That's what it's all about. Listen, we have a couple minutes left in the show, Dave. I want to touch on some of the other sports. UFC Fight Night tonight, not the biggest star-studded card. Obviously the main event, got canceled. They have new headliners in there. Hill against Johnny Walker. I do have a play on this one. I have Hill by KO, TKO, or DQ minus 135. I think Hill's footwork is much better. He's going to be able to get inside. I think Walker has a very eccentric striking style. He does a lot of crazy stuff in the cage, and that just leaves a lot of holes open defensively that I think Hill's going to be able to take advantage of. Hill's a fighter that is just going to walk you down and stalk you, right? So this is in the apex. This is in the smaller cage. So I don't think, Walker is going to be able to kind of move around as well as he would in a regular size octagon. I think that plays into Hill. Hill's a huge favorite, right? Minus 250. Was this morning. It may be moving. We don't want to bet into that number. Taking Hill minus 135 by knockout. Also parlaying Hill just to win outright with David Onama. Another bet that I like. That's a parlay that you can get at plus 133. I have a bunch of other plays on the Sharp app. It's going to be a tremendous card. So hopefully we can get some money tonight on the fights, because that's what we like to do on Saturday night. And also, Dave, I think you have a matchup before we get out of here for those that are playing some PGA.
Yeah, absolutely. Been hot in the PGA this week. Probably not going to come home with a winner. Got a couple that are right there in contention, but Joaquin Niemann is just out there stroking it. And someone might catch him, but I think you got to be within 5 or 6 today. So your Justin Thomas's, maybe even someone in the speed range, getting down to 8, where I like some of my guys, like a Colin Morikawa, might sprinkle some there. But further than that down, I think it's too big of a climb. But I'll give you these quick matchups today. Solely looking at strokes gained approach. All these players are in the top 20 today and playing against someone who has a worse strokes gained approach. Give me Casey over Answer at 120. Cam Smith over Hovland. Hovland had a great day yesterday, but I still believe in Cam. And Robbie McIntyre, minus 115 over Mito Pereira. Robbie, the big lefty from Ireland, really hitting the ball well. He's 19th in strokes gained approach this week. One of his weaker spots of his game is playing well, so I like him today.
Robbie's a guy you always root for, right? He's a lot of fun to watch. Listen, I did put in 2 small plays in PGA, and I had Max Homa top 20 that I played, and then I pissed it away with the second half. I also played Gooch top 20 as well. So the odds I did not get, it's probably going to be a small loss. I'll probably hit Homa. I'll probably lose Gooch. But the best part about it, Dave, I don't know if you saw it, was Gooch on Twitter yesterday. Did you see him smash that dude?
No.
Some dude bet on there. Go to Gooch's Twitter handle, and so funny. Some dude put something like, "Oh, Gooch, you're a scrub," like blah blah blah. Because obviously, he was awful this weekend, right? And gets cut, and I think he was like the 3rd worst. He's like 6 over the first day and ended up 8 over. Yeah. Yep. He comes over the top on the quote tweet, and he's like, "Listen, you're out here charging people $40 for betting analysis, and I'm making $2.5 million, and I'm the scrub." He just came from the top rope and was like, boom. He woke up and chose violence. And Gooch and Homer. People up. Yeah, dude, Gooch and Homer are great, dude. Like, they're so much fun, man. Like,
and add Brooks into that. And add Brooks. Brooks is the silent killer. But those three are different. Mickelson tried to say something about Brooks, and Brooks said something back, and Mickelson's like,
I'm done. I'm tapping out. Yeah. That's so funny, man. But dude, well, that's the thing. Is a lot of people know Brooks, but like low key, like, dude, Homa and Gooch are hilarious, dude. Like, they're so funny, man. And Higgs. But our guy Henry Higgs, man, or is it Harry Higgs? Is it Harry Higgs? I don't even know the guy's name, dude. But he pounds beers, dude. He comes to play every day, so you gotta love it, man. It's gonna be a lot of fun this summer with golf. Listen, we're gonna do a bunch of different stuff. We got USFL coming up. They have the draft. Listen, I know everybody's like, "Hey, it's not the best quality football," but these small markets present a ton of opportunities. So we're gonna be hitting on that. We got March Madness. We got plenty to keep us busy. Listen, we want to thank everybody for tuning in. Our guy Adam, we appreciate you hanging out. James Grasso, go check out his whole team over at Wildfire Podcast. They do great work. We appreciate everybody tuning in. We're going to be back next week. And Lexi, behind the scenes as well, we thank you for making us look good up here. And we'll be back next week with more action, hitting the hardwood, hitting everything that's going on, trying to make some money now the football is over. So download the Sharp app, get in the action, and let's make some money. We'll see you guys next week.